Cronin Toyota and Cronin Nissan are honored to partner with Proudly We Served, as well as the continued support of our local active and retired military veterans across eastern Indiana.
I'm Al Bledsoe, VFW Post 1108.
And I'm Ron Chappell, chaplain for the Vietnam Veterans Association here in Richmond, and co-host here with Al on Proudly We Serve. Today we are glad to have our guest who's returning. He's been here before, Joe DeVito. Joe, how are you?
I'm doing great. I'm glad to be here. It's good to be back.
Yeah, good to have you back.
We're good and glad to have you on the show. And maybe to start off with, let's do a quick intro of what you do and where you've been and that kind of stuff, and then we'll get down to some different things.
I've been here, there, and everywhere.
Yeah. Okay.
So I'm the Outreach and Communications Director for Indiana Department of Veterans Affairs.
Okay.
Indiana Department of Veterans Affairs is our state VA. It's not the federal VA. So when people hear VA, they think of our federal VA, which has its three distinct branches of VA, which is Veteran Benefits, then there's Veterans Healthcare, and then the Cemeteries Administration. So those are kind of the three arms of the federal VA. So the state of Indiana, we also have a VA, the IDVA, and every state does. So every state and territory has a Veterans Administration.
Okay.
They call them different things. I know in Georgia, it's the Bureau of Veteran Affairs. It's the Indiana Department of Veterans Affairs. They have a few different names, but they are all, every state has one. They all do some of the same things and some different things, but in general, they're there to help serve the population of their state, both with state benefits, federal benefit assistance, and in other ways. And in some of my travels everywhere, we were just chatting about being in Buffalo recently. And so there is a organization called NASDVA, which everybody loves their acronyms. It's the National Association of State Directors of Veterans Affairs. So my boss, Dennis Weimer, our director at Indiana Department of Veterans Affairs, it's an association of him and his colleagues. So every state and territory, they have the department and they have a director, someone who's in charge, appointed by their governor, and in other ways. So they have their own association. They meet twice a year, and that association as a whole has done some amazing work in the last few years, really. And getting together, and if you think about it, other than the national service organizations like the American Legion and VFW, they're one of the biggest, really, organizations as far as talking to our legislatures and creating that understanding about what happens. Because there's only so many states and territories, so they are a unique and strong group. They meet twice a year. In the winter, it's always in D.C., and then they rotate that summer conference in August to different states, and I'm super happy and proud to say that we'll be hosting that here in 2024. So this August we'll have the conference in Indianapolis. So we got some good fun stuff planned and a good meeting, but it's be the first time they've had one in Indianapolis, so we're excited to host them.
Will we be invited?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'd like to go to that.
Well, IDVA, I've always felt like it was kind of a go-between if you had a problem that couldn't get fixed by the local service officer, which would be unthinkable, but sometimes that's happened. Or maybe you had to call you guys to see what the real opinion was.
And I think that's an extremely important role that we do serve and that we try to continue to grow with. As you alluded to with your local service officer, there's your county veteran service officer. So every county in Indiana has one. Every state, by national law, is required to provide service officers. It's up to each state on how they do it. 20-something or so states go by county and have county veteran service officers. Some other states do it differently. Kentucky has regional service officers. But in Indiana, we have our CVSOs, or our County Veteran Service Officers, and they're employed by the counties. So the counties pay them, the counties provide their office and other things. They have a connection to the Indiana Department of Veterans Affairs and some code. So what we want to do to help support those county veteran service officers is help train them with the computer systems that we use statewide, and all the county or service officers volunteer to use. It's called VetraSpec. It's a claims management system. So when we enter veteran dependents into the system, it can help generate all the forms needed for federal and state benefit application. And it's a really great universal system that we use. So we help train them with those. We help bring them to, part of the code says that the CVSOs need to be accredited with the federal VA within 1 year of hire and then maintain that accreditation. So accreditation is a process through online trainings and some up-close work to get your accreditation with the VA. And that's provided via certain organizations. So American Legion, VFW, DAV, those organizations for sure. And then IDVA is also an accrediting body as well. So what we do is we provide district service officers around the state. Each one has a territory of 14 or more counties that they support. And they're out living in those districts, supporting those county service officers, giving them training in-house, helping them out with anything that they might need specifically, also providing training on the VetraSpec system and helping them get up to speed and accredited with the VA. So once...
Well, you said that the counties are required to have a VSO?
So now you were getting into the minutia of the code.
Well, I guess my concern is, does DVA, does the Department of Veterans Affairs provide the funding?
No. No, and the way the code is, the way the code says, I believe, very roughly, not quoted, is any city or county that provides a service officer should pay them in general. So we want, and that's so, and every county does have a CVSO. Some of them are full-time, some are part-time, some are staffed with multiple people, some are singular. You know, right around here we have Ron Whittick and Buddy do a great job here in Wayne County.
Yeah, we're fortunate to have two guys. And, to get into a little bit about what they do and what you do is this PACT Act has just been a head scratcher for everybody because they were running people through there like crazy. I don't know how many veterans we ended up with in Wayne County, but it's enough to keep two of them moving all the time.
Oh yeah,
like, so.
It sure is, and you know, it's really great the network of county veteran service officers, or CVSOs. I'm going to say that a lot, so I'll just say CVSOs. They do an amazing job, and like I said, it's kind of different county to county on the office structure and setup, but we've had nothing but great opportunities to work with them, and they're your local expert. You know, we tell anybody in the state, wherever you live, you can go right to our website, in.gov/DVA, and whether you're on your phone or on the computer, you'll see Find Your CVSO. It's a part of everything that we do, is letting veterans know how to find their county veteran service officer. It's your boots on the ground expert to help you get started with all of your state and federal benefits.
Well, I think it really helped when the city funded Buddy, and when Buddy came into existence to help Ron at the service office. The city stepped it up, and they're the ones that actually anteed up the payroll.
Oh, right.
I'm just sure that's.
I remember that.
Because I remember this. I remember them talking about that, and then it was reality because the county was stretched. They felt like as far as they could go, but what do you do when you've got a job like that to do, and you're servicing probably 5,000 men, or trying to service that many men and get the job done. And working with the government, as you know better than anybody, is pretty tenacious in itself. I mean, you can't get clear-cut answers, so a lot of gray area out there. But they do be on that team, that they really do a good job.
a good job.
They always get an answer to the question. With the the PACT Act, when that came into existence, I don't see how in the world you keep track of the flow of the paperwork.
Yeah, it's a little thick for sure. That's great to hear too, that the city is working with the county.
Yeah.
I've seen that in a few other places too, where maybe a large city within a county, they actually help, whether
Yeah.
it's with assistance or on payroll assistance with the county. And so, there's nothing better than when you get city, county, state government, federal government
Yeah.
on the same page,
Yeah.
working together.
It's a miracle.
Yep.
Well, I think when it comes to the veteran community, though, because of the, if you will, the stick that they carry, I think they're willing to listen, the county and the city. So they've both, I think, stepped it up and done a good job. So. Especially with the PACT Act, because it seems like they're always busy. If you go down, I used to just stop in and see them, and now I try to send a message out and say I'm going to stop by rather than just stop by, because they have guys that they're trying to get taken care of there. So
Yeah, and if you want, we can chat a little bit about the PACT Act and let folks know. PACT, PACT. It is an acronym. I'm not going to attempt to say what it is, but
it's a government thing.
that's right. So really what the PACT Act was is when it came into an existence, it's really just an extension of some existing opportunities for veterans. So when we work with our veterans, we talk about federal claims. One of the most major claims that veterans utilize and work with the federal VA is what's called service-connected disabilities.
Correct.
So that's basically for a veteran, if a veteran has a certain disability, disease, or disorder that they are currently diagnosed with at this current time, they can file a claim with the VA asserting that the disability, disease, or disorder they currently have was caused by or made worse by their military service. So for a regular service-connected disability claim, the onus of that connection, showing how what I may currently have was caused by military service, that's up to the veteran. You have to show that in that claim. Sometimes that's very easy. I may have a major knee problem now, and my military records show that I destroyed my knee in service, and it's for the same condition. So that's a pretty easy nexus to make. Sometimes it's hard to create that process. That's where your county veteran service officer comes in, and they're there. They understand the system. They know what questions to ask. They know what evidence, paperwork they might send the veteran back out to get, to make this claim, to do a proper claim, get it all in. Really, that's the nuance of the CVSO. That's why we want veterans to work with somebody who's trained and accredited in this process, and the VA wants that too. I know that we have a lot of veterans out there who have frustrations. I have too, with filing claims with the VA, and then it's letter after letter, extension after extension, and to a certain extent, a large part of that can be avoided. If a claim for a service-connected disability has all the documents it needs, doesn't have the documents it doesn't need, answers the questions it needs to answer, and provides everything kind of packaged up right from the beginning, and it's sent to the right place, that can go pretty quickly, a few months, and you get a decision back.
That happened, not to interrupt, but the PACT Act, I wasn't going to do anything with that, and then the doctor said, that fits your profile. And within 2 months, I was well on my way to getting that first round, if you will, approved. And then it was just done immediately.
See, and that's great to hear.
And
Really,
I was surprised because I had to go to Muncie for a blood pressure check and all that other stuff. And I thought, well, this is almost a waste of time because I was into the second month, and in my world, I want it to happen now. I can't wait. So Ron said, well, hang in there. It's applied for properly. And sure enough, I mean, they gave back pay on it and the whole 9 yards. So I I was pleased with that. But then I thought of how many guys apply for stuff that they have to wait, and the agony, if you will, if they really need it, if a knee problem or some other issue, and they aren't compensated right away. Because I'm on the school that page that if it's a problem, whether it's Iraq or whether it's Vietnam or wherever it's at, if it was caused in something you was doing, why, I think the government needs to ante that up a little bit.
Yeah. You know, actually, all of us are that.
And we waste a lot of money, so why not waste it, if you will, if they want to call it that, on a good cause?
I think all of us ought to have complained about our knees. Because the drill sergeant kept you on your knees.
Yeah.
Okay, so we should all.
That is true.
Yeah. So in my case, I didn't pursue anything with regards to the PAC Act because I was already 100% when it came out. So I didn't see any advantage to do anything with it, you know, and I haven't. Now, maybe that's to my chagrin. I don't know.
We're about here on television to have a conversation that I know our CVSOs and other veterans advocates would always have, and that is you need to file. I implore you to file, even though, as you alluded to, you're at a maximum rate with the VA, so it's not going to change your benefits with the VA, but to get on record every condition that is service-connected is beneficial now and in the future and for dependents in the future.
Yeah.
So I encourage you to follow through with that.
I will do that.
And
Is it
really,
too late?
no, not at all. We had the sunset of a specific date that created a further back pay. But the PAC Act is the PAC Act, and it's in there. And really what the PAC Act is it's an extension of a certain presumptive disorder claims. So when we were talking a moment ago, creating that connection. I have this now. This is why it was connected to my service. So the VA also provides what they call presumptive disorders. Now those are based on exposures. One of the most common one we know is Agent Orange for Vietnam veterans.
Yes.
There's also what we have atomic veterans who were during the atomic testing and other eras then. We also have other exposures, Camp Lejeune. Everybody hears that in the news right now. For veterans and their families who are stationed at Camp Lejeune for a chunk of years, there's contaminated drinking water. So there was an exposure there. Agent Orange was an exposure from Vietnam. We have burn pit exposure, right?
Yeah.
So these are specific duties that you had an exposure to. And what the presumptive disorders do, is they eliminate that nexus or connection. So for instance, for a veteran who served in the Republic of Vietnam, at least one day in a certain date period, and some other locations associated with exposure, which were certain Air Force bases outside of the country of Vietnam and other areas. So if a veteran, your records show, I served, boots on the ground within those days, and you now are currently diagnosed with anything that's on the list of Agent Orange presumptive disorders, that connection is presumed. It's presumptive. You will get your claim awarded.
Wow.
So common ones for that we see with Agent Orange is type 2 diabetes. That's one right there. So a veteran who served in Vietnam, records show they were in an exposure period and location. They now have that condition, they get that claim. Now, how much compensation they get and what their rating is for that claim is going to be dependent on the severity of their claim, the condition they have. But they will get that claim. That it's presumed caused by service because of the diagnosis and the exposure.
You just put a light bulb on my head here. I remember we had these outside, these latrines that were none but boxes, and you had one piece that had a hole in it, and underneath we had a 55-gallon drum cut in half, slid up under there to catch, and it was JP4, jet fuel, that was used to catch the stuff. And the detail was you had to burn it, stir it, and of course And I'm wondering, You know, a lot of guys who develop maybe COPD and stuff like that hadn't thought about that as a probable cause of the condition that they have or some other respiratory issue. You know, that's not on record. It's not on my record that I stirred that stuff. You know, so how would I?
We used
Not that I
lime. We
necessarily want
used
to,
lime
but-
to kill it. We
Yeah,
did.
right.
We had a sophisticated outside facility,
yeah.
but we used lime to kill it.
I was out in the
Oh,
ocean,
wow.
so you can imagine
That's
how
stirring
easy
stuff.
it is. But
That makes me nervous to think about that, boy.
so that's a great question because you know when you're dealing with a condition that isn't a presumptive disorder, you need to build that up. And the VA wants a complete claim. They have a great opportunity. Years ago, they came out what's called an intent to file. So if we were engaging over looking at a claim and we realized, hey, there's something I think we should file for with the VA. There's a service-connected disability I think we should file for, but we need to gather more things.
Right.
Maybe we need more extensive diagnosis from your doctor. We need to review your records. We need to start looking at some previous VA appeals claims to see if anything is precedent to bring towards yours. So what we can do is actually file at that point what's called a intent to file. So today we could file that with the VA. Now it's not a claim, but it's you telling the VA, I'm gonna file a claim. Hold my date. So the day they receive that intent to file, you have 12 months to actually file your claim.
Wow.
Anywhere in that 12 months you do file it, if you are awarded, your back pay or retroactive pay will go back to the day we filed the intent to file.
Wow.
Now the trick about the intent to file is if you go 366 days after you filed that, you don't get the back pay. It's 1 year from when you file that intent to file, but they give you that year. So that instead of filing a claim that needs a lot of work and the VA has to go back and forth, they're telling you, give us a complete claim, a fully developed claim. Take the time so that when we get it, we're ready to look it over, rate it, and go from there.
Yeah.
So we would look at a lot of things, you know, like you were saying, there's nothing in your record saying that you were changing the latrine, right? and burning off those situations. But first thing would be, do you have a condition now that we believe may be caused by that? Second thing would be is to see if we could get maybe your current physicians to look over some of your records and have that conversation to understand what you did back then, and them to say, I think what you have now could have been caused by being exposed to that smoke, burning, doing what you did. They may say, it has nothing to do with that, it's hereditary, and you're, okay, well, we don't have a claim. But they may say, sure, that could definitely be associated with that. So now we'd have to go to the fact of trying to show to the VA that you did do that. Right. One thing that's very strong with the VA, and they consider, is what they call buddy statements. So we do want to get a hold of folks you served with, right? Which is not as hard nowadays because of the old Facebook, right? So it's not that hard to find folks. But if we can find somebody you might have served with, to include a statement saying, yeah, we served together. I saw him do that. I had to do it too. We had to burn that stuff. It could even be statements from your spouse saying, oh, he's been telling that story since 1981 when I met him. That's important. So these are important things for the VA to consider. And you know, there's no guarantee. There's always the options where you get denied. Well, the VA has got avenues. Just because you get a no, it's not a final no. And there's certain claims, you know, you can always take to the Board of Veterans Appeals and have a face-to-face computer, now usually, meeting with a law judge. And that law judge has the opportunity and to look at your claim, listen to your statement, and if the VA doesn't, say there's 5 things they need to give you that claim. They have 4, but they don't have the 5th. So they can't award it. You could talk to that law judge. They have the ability to say, I don't care about the 5th, I'm awarding you your claim. They have the ability to, the only person that can do that. So it's just up to you having that conversation with them. And sometimes veterans need to go through a process and get that done. But
well, I know we're going to talk
That's
more
amazing.
about
I
this.
didn't realize all that.
We only got about 3 minutes left. So we're
Sure.
going to have Joe back. real soon. Next show. So
Okay, so we'll sign off.
I feel overwhelmed.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thanks for watching,
Joe,
folks.
thank you so much.
Absolutely.
Thanks, Joe.
Thanks, folks. Thanks for watching Proudly We Serve.
Cronin Toyota and Cronin Nissan are honored to partner with Proudly We Served, as well as the continued support of our local active and retired military veterans across eastern Indiana.